Hi everyone, welcome to January 26th. This is the stock review for this week and for today as well. So before we get started, this video is for information purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before investing. Okay, starting with the worst sector for the day. I think 2 days in a row now, SMH, and that's merely just pulling off from the highs over here. Got super extended from the 5-week moving average, and we could see sort of a retest of the 5-week like we saw over here and back into some of these boxes over here. This is the weekly chart, and if you see on the daily, we have kind of a small island reversal, which would invalidate somewhere around the 190 to 192 mark. So putting an alert here, and you can say that island reversal invalidated. But until that is intact, we do have this like island reversal on the daily, which could mean that SMH heads lower into some of these and fills some of these gaps down here. If we look at how it looks like over here on the weekly, it kind of looks like a head and shoulders forming, but it might need some more time to develop. The thing is, we do have also next Wednesday FOMC, so we could see some profit taking into that event, which would bring the SMH down. So let's just do a correlation here. We're looking at 182 to 180 for the first gap, and from 179 to 174 for the second gap. So 182 to 180 and 179 to, so basically entering into this weekly value area and taking out this this VPOC here would be something to look for in SMH, with that island reversal coming through, and today not being able to get through the that 190 mark. TAN is still underperforming for a while now, and today continues to, showing no strength over here. Yesterday, I think there was a bit of a push on TAN, but gave that back today. XLK looking kind of similar to the SMH semis. Tech kind of giving way over here with the losing the 5-day today. We'd still have about an hour and a half to go. So there could be an end of day rally, which does like a kick save on this. But so far, this is what it's looking like. And if you look on the weekly, same sort of sell side type of candle here on an XLK, on the XLK, similar to SMH. IYT actually not looking too bad this week, closing in above the 5-week moving average. So switching that to a back to kind of a bullish momentum here. But there is overhead resistance coming through very soon for IYT, and we'll have to see how that responds, how the buyers respond to that sell side, and who takes control. QQQ kind of stuck between these trend lines here in this these two phases on the weekly, still kind of extended from the 5-week, but on the daily, it looks like similar type of an island reversal, with it opening with a gap up and then some kind of movement over here, or price movement here, but then a gap down, and so far below that 5-day moving average. So QQQ looking similar to SMH and XLK. Let's take a look at how TLT is holding in. So TLT is kind of forming this flag type pattern, some consolidation going on here. What would be good for stocks is if this consolidation reverses and TLT starts moving higher, but it looks like this might be waiting for the FOMC that's on Wednesday or January 31st. ITB had a bit of a push on here from this buy point that we had marked, and then the 5-day and the this is, I think, the 50-day. So this is the 5-day and the 20-day, actually 20-day moving average and 5-day moving average acting as resistance and pushing it further down so far. What does it look like on the weekly? On the weekly, we have a close similar to this one. We have a close below the 5 week. Actually, these candles looking very similar. But what we can see in terms of the divergences is that the price did move higher, but formed a lower high on the RSIs. So a higher price. 1 second. Yep, and then IWC microcaps with still contesting with that 200-day moving average. We'll still keep an alert right above it to see when it gets through it. So microcaps kind of holding in over there with that resistance up ahead. IYR is real estate ETF that is forming this kind of looks like a flaggish pattern, and could have a trend above and a continuation over here above this above this flagging pattern. So a break of about 89 would mean continuation of this trend. So IYR looking decent so far. What would invalidate this is if the 200-day doesn't hold and it breaks below it. XLI, not a bad close here, or a close to a close. We are above the 5-week moving average, and looks like we might close above it. So similar to, I would say, IYT here. This was kind of falling through and has taken that 5-week back. So looking constructive here on XLI. Small cap growth also holding above the 5-week, not as strong of a close, but still above the 5-week here. S&P has a little bit more to run, about the 495 to the 5,000 mark. Not sure when it's going to do that, if it's going to consolidate further and then rush higher, but it has some more to run on the bullish side, and it is above the 5-week, so still a bullish kind of look on SPY. But if we look at the daily, you can see there is no island formation or anything like that here, and it is continuing to hold that 5-day moving average. So definitely a much better look than SMH, XLK, and QQQ are putting through right now. But just because those sectors are looking a little heavy, we could see a kind of pushback down to the AV wrap over here, or maybe the 20-day moving average before a run higher. But so far, hard to say. We are bouncing at the supports and moving higher, so still a bullish momentum coming in for SPX. And you can see this week I've kind of been stuck in a range. That's all we've been doing this week, and stuck between the 4,900 and the 4,860. And similar to how we were stuck here for a while with the 4,800 being resistance, now with the 4,900 being a resistance, and possibly going into the FOMC, we won't see this move higher over there. Okay, let's look at what UUP did. So dollar not looking too bad here, had a weekly close above the previous week, although in the midweek it felt like it was going to break down and start to close these gaps maybe, but it picked up momentum again and closed the week into this wick. So that is a counter signal for the market, but a decent close here for the dollar as well. And dollar and TLT are two headwinds that are close to, you should be closely watching for the market. XLB or I'll just look at XBI here. XBI a little kind of I would say chart with too many things on it right now, but here we removed some of it. So you can see this is the weekly chart, so we were trailing right above the weekly 5-week, and then we closed below it last week. And this week we tried to retake it, but so far not successful in taking that 5-week and looking like a close below it. So now we're gonna have 2 weeks of closes below it, and before we can see how this so this, we had a close below, then tried to retake it but wasn't able to with a further kind of a drawdown here on XBI, and similar to this week, 2 weeks below, 3 weeks below, we tried to retake it, but 5 week kind of guiding it lower. So far this is just looking sideways, but if it starts to kind of roll over here, that would be something to watch on the XBI, which would the resistance getting the best of it for now. Utilities, nothing much to report here. We have that sell side resistance that kind of came into play. MDY mid caps looking constructive with it holding above the 5 week. So that is a decent look and similar to some of the IYT. So I'm going to switch this over to green as it is a decent close for the week for MDY. And same with IWM. And I'll look over into the daily here. You can see how the 5-day has been supporting IWM, and it is up also today, gotten above, and even yesterday had a close above the 20-day as well, and was able to maintain that. Also was able to hold this gap. So this is also looking good. IWM small caps. XLE was able to get through some of this resistances we had talked about before and puts in a close above that today. So that also looking bullish for now. If we look at the weekly chart, we can see there is also the 5 week that is coming up ahead as the as overhead resistance. So still some work to be done here for XLE. But that was a good week with it bringing out the from the top of this box that we had made based on where buyers and sellers have previously fought. That came into play, acted as support, and then a heavy push through on XLE, retaking the past 2 weeks of selling this week. XLF, not a bad close. We are into that box and far away from that 38 level, so looking like further trend continuation for XLF, although Visa did report and was down, but not down by a lot. That was yesterday. XLY I think was affected by the earnings missed by Tesla, and we had a large sell-off in XLY, but today kind of push higher, but the 5-day now with it guiding XLY lower, it looks like it wants to get into this this demand area over here to consolidate and then possibly make a decision of if it wants to go higher or lower from here, but still on a downtrend. XLY. XRT kind of too close to call over here, but it did, or it's right about the 5-day moving average here, and just below the 5 week, so maybe too close to call for now. XLC is actually looking good, and it is marked in green. That was a great close this week for XLC, and on the daily as well, with the 5-day kind of moving underneath that move to support it. XLP with tight consolidation coming through and a gap up today. It could start moving higher, but there is sell side resistance here which could come into play at any time. XME, metals and mining, is above this zone and above some of these moving averages, but let's just take a look at weekly and see what's going on. So on the weekly here, we did have closes below the 5 week. Today this week tried to retake it, but still it closed below. So weekly still looking bearish on the XME. XLV had an interesting, really interesting week. So you could see how we had a false breakdown here with a push higher on XLV. We lost that 20-day moving average after a long time. It looked like we're going to go underneath and retest this this top of the breakout area, but we had a large gap up today, with a sell-off and supported by that 5 and 20-day pinch. So I would say this invalidates that, and the false breakdowns I like a lot, because a lot of buyers get stopped out over here and then it pushes higher. This could lead to further price action, bullish price action coming through in XLV. So I'm going to switch this back into green for now. IYZ also looking good above the 5-day, and on the weekly above the 5-week and moving higher. We have some resistances from before that might affect it, but so far trend is still bullish on IYZ. This is telecommunications. KRE is kind of contesting with this 200-week moving average, and it might be waiting, regional banks might be waiting for the FOMC coming through next week. IBM had stellar earnings, and this chart has been flying, but this week after that earnings wasn't able to maintain that move. It was a big move here. Let's see. This was 9, 10, 13% at the peak of it, 13, 14%, but giving some of that back. I'm looking for a possible consolidation and maybe a catch up of the 5-day. It likes to hug the 5-day and move up. So maybe catching 5-day catching up, and then a continuation of the move higher and then a stock of interest for me personally. Tesla not putting in good earnings, and it is below this resistance over here. So it's a no-go. No point touching this, as I mean, you could see interim bounces and closing of some of these gaps, but for now, the trend is down on Tesla. Microsoft is a good look, but with earnings coming through on Tuesday, just before the FOMC, that will also probably dictate the direction that QQQ chooses, with some of these tech earnings being reported next week. And also FOMC the day after. But so far looking bullish, Microsoft. This is a home building sector. We know that DHI didn't do well on earnings and has been kind of selling off after that. Some of these other home builders still have some time before their earnings. Home Depot has earnings on 20th Feb, so there is some time before earnings. So this could be a sector to play without having to worry about the earnings reactions here. Semis coming through with a bit of a sell-off today. Nvidia, but still holding that 5-day so far today with an hour and a half to go. ARM was the bearish of them all. Tried to break through yesterday, but failed and just been selling from there. We might be trying to close this gap here and move down to the $70 price tag on ARM. Visa, like I said, was looking very good, had a bit of a sell-off, but supported by that 20-day moving average, and still looks decent here. We had decent earnings here with a beat coming through for Visa, and with that XLF sector breaking out into that zone above that 38 level, Visa would be still a stock to watch, and possibly if it retakes that 5-day would be something to look at. Evercore is another financial company with XLF doing well. Thought I'd look into this, but it is not being supported today by the 5-day. And XBI coming through with a tight consolidation. There is some bearish look to it from the RSI divergences. But we wouldn't know. It has to break one way or the other to confirm that, and then we can follow some trades on XBI. So far, just kind of wait and see. ARDX was an interesting stock in the biotech space and XBI space, which broke out last week, and it did a crazy some 50% move. And is looking like a further breakout, but would wait for further confirmation. The volume is not confirming of a further breakout, so it could be a false breakout here on ARDX, and with that huge move, it might make, if it wants to move higher, it might take a little bit longer for it to consolidate that huge move of 50% last week. But biotech stocks are kind of crazy. They do move like crazy. So if you position yourself in any biotech ones, you just got to position, size your position according to the volatility. XLV, oh, we talked about this. Let me just get rid of these. I'd added that some of these ETFs here for ease of viewing. I think we can get rid of that. All right, so some of the things at SYK look like a breakdown here from the 5-day, but it didn't even need to touch the 20-day here. It got supported right before it and closing the day so far above that 5-day, so not a bad look. And on the 5-week, it is supported. It was supported by that 5-week here at 307.56. So still looks like the trend and is intact for SYK. This can be switched back to green. Boston Dynamics also closing above that 5-day, and on the weekly less extended with a check back off that 5-week, looking good. Although some of these, like Wednesday, January 31st is Boston Dynamics, and Tuesday, January 30th is Stryker. So got to watch out for those earnings reactions that would come through for these stocks. MOD was a high flyer ever since this kind of broke out from October. We are seeing some sell-off into that 5-week over here. Still a little bit further away. That 5-week sits at around 62.65. So a sell down to 62.65. What we want to see next is if it is supported at that price point, and then we can make a decision from there. Okay, so that is all for today, guys. Hope that was helpful, and have a great weekend.